Right, Jayden, hello.
Hey man.
Good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you too.
Thanks for giving your time to um, join us in conversation today, or join me in conversation today. So I think the best way to begin this is um, how how do we first how do we know each other? For context.
Well, I think after treatment, at least where I went, they I think they put a pretty decent emphasis on aftercare, especially because I think the people that went there, I think certainly had the financial ability to kind of get that, and I guess they put my family in contact with you, or suggested you. I think you were described as the Lamborghini of recovery coaches or aftercare coaches, or
What the fuck?
um whatever, which I thought was quite sort of a. I was pretty upset about it actually, because I remember I was reading the all the 12-step basic tech stuff, and I was like, yeah, I want to get a sponsor and not this Lamborghini recovery coach bullshit and blah blah blah. But I mean, I don't know. I thought it was pretty helpful at the end because it took me a little bit to find a sponsor, I remember. So it was probably for the better, you know. Everything kind of ended up for the better, I think.
Yeah. I didn't know that Lamborghini. I wouldn't say. I don't like that. I'm not a fan of that either.
I wouldn't say, maybe like a Beal or something.
Yeah, I don't know, Fiat Punto or something. I don't know. That's why I'm underselling myself here. But anyway, no, I totally understand your trail of thought. I'd have been the same, because yeah, you got a very clear cut. I know you as well as I know you, Jayden. I think I kind of know you enough to know that you're quite strong-willed. I think we all are in a certain way. And I think you had your own sort of thoughts on what you felt you needed to do from the outset. But anyway, so that was how long ago was that? That was about was it around COVID time? Because I remember I was really ill actually. I couldn't actually see you physically. We had to do it remotely.
So you were ill, but it was not COVID. It was, I got clean September 20th, 2022. I'm 2 years clean with a couple months of some change.
Amazing.
So
Well done.
yeah, so it would have been in November 2022. So it would have been before New Year's 2023. I know that
Oh,
much.
okay. All right,
Yeah,
okay.
something like that.
Okay. And you are celebrating a birthday
Just to say, yeah,
yesterday. How old are you now?
20.
Congrats.
It's kind of crazy, actually. You always, for so long, for as long as I can remember, I always had a one in front of my, birth, like 1, 11, 19, whatever.
Yeah.
So now it's kind of, I guess it's the next stage in life, I guess, for me, which
Yeah.
I'm kind
Well,
of looking forward to.
well, I always think I see it in everyone. I always say this, I failed to do what you lot do in your teens and in your early 20s. I did. I failed to do it. It was too much of an undertaking. I don't think I had the right resources available and the right person put in front of me to inspire me to want to even try. So, well done for that, for reaching 20 and seeing your 20th birthday on this planet, drug free, it's
I
amazing.
mean, I probably wouldn't even have made it to 20, to be honest with you. So that's already a pretty good achievement in my eyes.
It's amazing, mate. So we'll get into all of that. I think it's, we'll start. There's always a starting point. We're sort of talking more, where you at now. Obviously, we'll go back to, how did you get to this point? Um, so you're native German, right? Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I live in Florida, and I don't know. I always say I'm American besides the accent, because I lived in Florida from the time I was maybe like 7 onwards, and then you have to think you don't remember from 1 to 5 really that much, and then if you move when you're 7, everything, your whole experience is that new country basically. Even though I have the accent and everything like that, and
Yeah.
You know, I guess certainly maybe culturally I'm different, but I associate home more with America than I do with Germany.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. The Everglades.
Yeah, I mean that was always a good time.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Do you still do photography? You still doing that?
Yeah,
Damn
I
good
feel.
photographer. Damn good photographer.
I mean, I don't have as much time as I'd like to just because of school, and when my school is in Tampa, it's a lot easier going to the Everglades and stuff like that from Miami. That's about like a 2-hour drive to get to all those areas.
Mm-hmm.
And from Tampa, it's about 4 hours, and you have to think 4 hours back and forth in one day. It's 8-hour drive, you know. It really usually what I'll do is if I'm home for the weekend, so I'll drive home on like a Friday afternoon, and then Saturday morning I'll go hiking from Miami, you know.
Yeah, wicked. So cool. I was gutted though. When when we got introduced, when I got called that I was going to be deployed to help you, um, and I knew that you was based in Miami, however you say
Miami, yeah.
it. I was like, oh, never been. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, I was sick, so we did it remotely. And I'm a big fan of just supporting people and helping and sharing a bit of knowledge and experience where I can, whether it's physically face to face or on the phone, either way. So what you you ended up in a treatment center. What was you in there for?
Um, I mean, I think originally there was no mention of drug use, I think. I think it was mostly just I was acting really manic and sporadic and quite sort of maybe like borderline personality disorder is a way to describe it. Really manic and sort of maybe bipolar would be like a common way to call it. You know, it was really problematic. And um, maybe 3 weeks before I went to rehab, you know, I was or treatment or whatever you want to call it. I was like, you know, in my bed withdrawing and I couldn't eat and I was vomiting all over myself and everything. And I'd become quite kind of violent and aggressive and really easily upset and agitated. And I think I was at boarding school at the time, and the school I think I called a teacher a cunt. And after she was like, "Yeah, you have to come to class." I said, "It's none of your business, you fucking cunt." Mind you, this was like the head of my grade, like the big boss. And after that point, you know, they were trying to get me to do things, and I was always pretty much like, "Fuck you. What are you gonna do? Make me? You can't hurt me. I'm like 17. Like you can't hit me."
Yeah.
And they tried to put me in like a mental hospital for a little while and everything, and it basically ended with my mother coming to school, and they were like, "Okay, your kid has to get off
Mm.
drugs or whatever, get fixed. Otherwise, we're not letting him finish high school."
I always find it interesting, excuse me, that someone displays um, behavior of being a little bit chaotic and aggression's always in there. For me, aggression was because I felt misunderstood.
Yeah.
Like,
For sure.
fuck you, who the fuck
Mhm.
do you think you are? Authority as well, throw a splash of I can't handle authority.
Yeah.
So, anyway, but when people go from that to we need to put you in a mental institution, it's like, there's always that sort of knee-jerk reaction of we can't handle this person's behavior, and they equate to they're nuts, they need to be put in a mental institution. Was you actually put in one?
So they drove me to the hospital to do an intake, and I basically, because I was at boarding school, so it was all with house parents or whoever the people taking care of me,
Mm.
who I had a really poor relationship with. Like they have an Excel file with everybody, and they have every name in a color. So green is good, yellow is problematic, and red is like, okay, this guy, like, watch out. and I was always, like red. I think I was probably even like maybe I was like maroon red, like even one
Deep,
worse.
deep
Like
red,
really deep down.
double red.
They already knew I had problems, and I ended up punching my housemaster in the jaw, and then I basically, and same mindset. I'm like, I'm 17, you can't hit me. What are you gonna do? Tackle me? So I punched him in the face, and I just walked off. And I was like, whatever, I'll just take a train and leave, and I'll get a pack of smokes. And like, what are you gonna do? Like,
Fucking
you're
hell,
just
man.
like, you can't constrain me, whatever. And after that point, they were like, okay, like now we're getting your parents involved and whatever. But at that point, I didn't really care. I was
Can I,
just, yeah.
sorry to interject, Jane, can I ask you, what was going on in your head at that time? What was, what was the root of all of that behavior? Because you weren't just doing it because you wanted to clump someone because you thought, you know what?
No, it was, I mean, definitely, like you said, like being misunderstood, I think. But at that point, I, I think I'd spent that summer I spent living in a tent, and, um, and on people's couches, but mainly in a tent. And I think I, I was at home alone, and I was up for weeks at a time. I was in psychosis for a month at least. I don't even remember that time. I mean, I was really, bugs under your skin, people in the house, like, the
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
typical like
yeah,
FBI is coming, looking through the
yeah,
shutters and everything. And I
yeah.
spent so much time absolutely at war with my own mind, I think, that I was so erratic. I had no idea what I was even thinking or what I wanted, but I was just all these people keep doing things to me and I don't want it. It
Yeah.
felt, yeah, it felt, and it was really sort of, I think a big thing was misunderstanding, because to me in my head it all was making such sense. Like, why don't you understand why I'm acting this way? But I think that's a lot of, I mean, people have that a lot, where you think you're entitled to do what you're doing because to you it makes perfect sense. Because I think, I
Yeah,
mean, most of the time people aren't bad people, but they just think a certain way that makes them feel it's
absolutely.
okay to do what they're doing. And I was sort of in that position.
Totally, totally understand what you're saying. And it's that kind of attitude, mindset of if you felt how I did, you'd
Yeah,
be like me as well, you know what I mean? And that's
yeah,
where
yeah,
that misunderstood sort of thing comes in. Because we always feel like people just don't get us, we're
yeah,
misunderstood. Can I ask you as well? You said about the psychosis stuff. Um, I definitely experienced through sleep deprivation. That is a
yeah,
massive. I still, if I don't get enough sleep, you know, um, I can totally feel my experience is impaired when I've not had enough sleep. You know what I mean? So sleep is so important. And back in the day, I had a lack of it, and it was a very consistent lack
yeah,
of sleep. So I definitely went a bit nutty from sleep
yeah.
deprivation. Was it just that, or was there chemicals involved at that?
No, it was also the camera for sure. I mean, it was at that point I moved away from pills because I realized that was becoming a problem, and I resorted to just smoking spice at that point,
What pills?
like benzos and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was just doing spice, and the spice would keep me up would keep keeping me up,
Hmm.
and I would sort of do it this way. I would do, like vape spice while I'm rolling a joint of spice, while I'm filling my bong with spice. Um,
Like you
and at
do?
the same time drinking a beer. So I mean, and that was for the whole day. So let's say till 12 o'clock at night, from 7 a.m. till 12 o'clock at night,
Yeah, yeah,
I'd be
yeah.
doing that, drinking spice. And then at maybe 3 a.m., I go to bed for 30 minutes, wake up, smoke spice while I'm rolling a joint for more spice, sleep another 30 minutes. And so you're not getting any actual sleep. Like, you're not getting any harmful chemicals out of your brain. You're just
Yeah,
smoking spice.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I did that for about a month, and there was periods where I would maybe get a little bit more, like maybe 5 hours of sleep maybe once a week. I'd get like a good 12 hours in where I would be sleeping. But it was definitely the spice. And
Wow.
yeah,
I wasn't back in the day. That wasn't a thing, you know. I missed
No.
the Spice Express. I missed that one. Thank God, I feel, because that seemed to mess up a lot of people. Still does, right?
Yeah, well, people think it's like weed, but that's the same as saying people compare it like you compare like coke and crack, but it's not like coke and crack. It's like coke and meth. Like it's a whole different animal. Um, it's not like weed. It's just not like spice can make you stay up for a day. It can make you pass out instantly. It can make you nod off. Like you have no, you know, it's really just a chemical concoction of who knows what.
God Almighty,
and
yeah.
and yeah, I mean a lot of the time it's sold as weed, and then you have kids, with seizures, and I
Mm,
mean you can OD. I mean I don't think you can OD on it in the kind of typical sense, but you can have adverse reactions that lead to, death and all
mm,
that stuff, collapsed lungs a lot too. People get their lungs collapsed a lot with the vaping when they
yeah.
vape spice.
And no
And that happened
doubt,
to a couple people.
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
And no
Uh,
doubt, permanent, brain damage, or not, I wouldn't say permanent, but to some degree, surely brain damage, some sort of brain impairment. Um, so I'm just interested, how did you come across that in the first place? How old was you when you started to sort of dabble in all that stuff?
Probably 11 maybe,
You
I'd
left.
say. 11 is when I started doing stuff like inhaling like paint thinner, paint, glue, nail polish remover. Deodorant was my big one that I liked inhaling, which I never knew you could do, but it's so convenient because it's in a can. So it's already pressurized, so you just spray it on a towel
Yeah,
or
yeah,
in a bag, and
yeah.
I did that for a little while, and then by the time I was 12, I smoked my first. I don't know if it was a joint or a THC pen. I guess it was probably a THC pen, and so I did, and then within the same week, I think probably 5 days later, I did acid for the first time. So this was when I was 12.
You did acid at 12. Wow.
At 12, yeah.
Wow, I was
Bad acid.
Can you, like, without getting into it, because I don't want to, spiral you out on a fucking, but like, you said it was bad acid. What was it, a bad
Yeah.
trip or just bad acid?
I guess it
Or
was
but
just bad
both.
acid. Both, maybe, I guess. I don't know. Some people, I guess if you did acid, which I'm going to assume you did,
Oh yeah.
sometimes it feels, I guess this is maybe doesn't make sense to people who haven't done acid, but it feels like scratchy. Maybe the right way to say it.
Scratchy.
Like someone scratching glass. Like that's how some acid feels, And it was that type, which feels very much like this is not real acid that I'm taking, but some other, third party chemical from, you know,
Yeah.
who knows where.
Well, I mean, a lot of what people are getting these days. I mean, even back in my day, man. I mean, you never really know what
You don't.
was. You don't. I mean, God, we all think we're alchemists. Us lot when we're sort of experimenting, we all think we know it all, and we love to think we know it all. But the reality is, do we actually really know anything about it? What we're taking? I don't know about you, but I used to take stuff and then ask what it was after.
No, no, yeah. I mean, absolutely. And
I mean,
but the acid did a vast majority of the mental
mm,
issues that I have now because I would do acid 2 times a week, 3 times a week from the time I was 12 to maybe 14. And I mean, it wasn't even like I was having a good time. I would just be on I would just be in psychosis after psychosis after psychosis after psychosis. And I mean, I always liked acid for the first 2 hours, but then I'd look at my clock and I'd be like, oh, 8 more to go. I'd be like, fuck this. I wanted to stop and it wouldn't. And I mean, I was 14 and I saw God and all that stuff, and it just scarred me. And it was just, I don't know. It was a really bad time mentally, I think.
God, I wish I'd seen God. I mean, me and a couple of mates. I'm not gonna name him, but I know from our experiences, we saw the opposite of God on bad
Yeah.
trips, man. It's a really hardcore thing. I mean, psychedelics are could potentially be to someone that's using it in the right way. It's quite controversial, this, but it could be actually a very, very enlightening experience. And I think some of what I did was, but a lot of it was very dark and disturbing to me as well, you know.
I mean, I know the reason I did it was just to feel good and to also escape reality. And it's great because for $10 you can escape reality for up to 12 hours.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
yeah.
much better price value than weed or whatever, you know, coke, definitely coke or crack. But it was, I mean, I still have, you know, lasting hallucinations from psychosis.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're 2 years down the line. You've been sober, clean, you know,
Yeah.
abstinent from mind-altering substances for 2 years, just about, right?
Yeah, a little bit more than 2 years, but yeah.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, look, well done for that. And my experience and the way I see it is that you will continue to recover and become more fully rounded as a human being as the months, days, years go by. As long as you're doing what you're doing a day at a time, bro. So it's amazing. So with what you're describing, what we was just talking about, there's a reason we do that, right? There's two reasons. For me, it was like experimentation, right? So I when I was at that age you're saying, I knew people were doing stuff. I knew there were certain people experimenting in certain things. And I was in a place in my life where I felt vulnerable, insecure. I didn't have any self-worth, low self-esteem, had no self-esteem. Didn't really like myself much. And I'm searching for something to fill that void, right? So it made perfect sense to me that I'm going to gravitate towards anything and everything I can to try and fix that sort of sense of emptiness that I feel in my soul, right? Um, and I remember to begin with, I would have said no, and I would have swerved certain things, you know, and then people and the places and the things that were happening that I knew were bad, and I shouldn't do those things because morally I thought that's bad, that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But as time went by and as life wore me down, I just went, fuck it. I'm in. Let's have a look at this. There's something in this. And when I worked out that what I was starting to dabble with could actually momentarily change the way I feel and take me away from, you know, and escape how I feel, I'm subscribed to that, man. I'm in. I'm doing that on a not every day, but eventually I'm doing it every day as a coping mechanism, survival,
Yeah.
right? So anyway, that's how it was for me. What was your version of that?
I mean, it was pretty similar. I mean, to be almost exactly the same. I mean, it was at a point in my life where my home life was sort of going terribly. And, you know, I would say, you know, abusive and neglectful, and especially just neglectful for sure, and abusive as well. And I was looking for something to fill that void or something. I mean, I didn't think about it at that point in that way, but
Yeah.
looking in hindsight, you know, 100%. And um, you know, when you're in it, you're never thinking about it. You know, at some point you just turn around and you think, what the fuck am I doing here? You know, that was it for me. At some point, I turned around and I thought, what the fuck am I doing, vomiting on myself in my bed for withdrawing? You know, how the fuck did I get here? Because I was, you know, I was 12, and next thing I realized I'm fucked. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it just became a way for myself to almost, the root of a lot of my problems stems from the fact that at some point, I don't know where I picked this up, but at some point I picked up this feeling of I don't like myself. I don't like my internal and external conditions, or maybe I hate myself. It's like the correct way to say it. And it became less about let's escape that feeling to let's act on it, and let's destroy ourselves, and that's what happened a lot towards the end when I was, describing with punching my housemaster in the face and everything and calling the teacher a cunt. That was a lot of me just seeking out self-destruction and chaos for myself because I hated myself, and I tried to kill myself, but I didn't have the balls to. And this was sort of my outlet for, let's say, maybe harming myself. Some people might cut themselves, and this was how I chose to do it, was to destroy my body physically and mentally. And I really like that. That's still the thing that I miss the most about using drugs, is not the fact that I'm high or feeling good. Of course, that's always a plus, but the self-destruction aspect of it, hurting myself or having chaos,
Yeah, well, that's really well put, how you've explained that. I really relate to that as well, how you said that. It's a bit like, for me, it's, pulling a pin out of a grenade and just holding on to it. That, not even gonna throw the grenade, you know what I mean? So it's an indicator, I think, for anyone listening to this, whether you relate to what we're talking about, or you are being subjected to this sort of behavior from a loved one or someone you know. It's really, I think, really useful for us to sort of get into the why. We're describing the what, but it's why. Why do people do this? Well, why? Because we don't just wake up and go, I'm going to do this. There's always an underlying driving root driver, a root cause to it. For me, it was unresolved trauma. That was the driving force. It's just that cesspit of really. It was discomfort. I felt a lot. You used the word agitation, which I think is a byproduct of discomfort, right?
Yeah.
If I'm in discomfort, if I don't feel comfortable, I'm going to be agitated.
Yeah. For sure. And I mean, I used it a lot to control other people as well, because I knew that other people knew how kind of mentally deranged I could be. So it would be like pulling the pin on the hand grenade and say, fuck, I'm gonna take us all down if you don't fuck off or you don't do this, I'll burn this whole place to the ground,
Yeah.
and it became very dysfunctional, and within my family at least, really dysfunctional and enabling and an open secret. And I grew up around a lot of people, when I was younger, prostitutes and overdosing and drinking and drugging, and I sort of became part of that, not really actively, but I picked up on it, and I would be doing it as well, but by myself, and it became really sort of the relationships between everything became really convoluted. And kind of, I think when I was younger, I watched Jordan Peterson before he became all political and stuff like that. And he said something like, you'll have a dragon in your house, and it was this metaphor, having this little dragon growing and growing, and then it runs away with the whole house. And it was, sort of for dysfunctional families, sort of, comparing that, how you have these dysfunctions growing and growing, and then you can't even fix them anymore,
Yeah.
and you get into these cycles, I guess, with your family or with your significant other or with
Yeah.
friends, where you just are in this dysfunction. Everybody knows you're in it, but you won't break out of it because you're just so used to it. And I found myself, and I think my family found themselves in that sort of position, until I eventually split, and then kind of, I guess, came back to them after, my stay in treatment.
Wow. I think it's common. I don't think this is
Yeah.
a isolated, oh, there's something wrong with you, or, your family dynamic. Or I think this is a common thing, certainly from where I'm sitting, because I work in this field of, a lot of families, a lot of people like yourself, who, like myself, it's learnt behavior. Sometimes we're around, it's not just in the family home, it's just, it's the people that we are closest to when we're forming our viewpoints and
Yes.
the way we develop our skill sets in early life are going to be influenced by the people that we're closest to.
Absolutely.
Makes sense, right? So, and if that's if that's something that's really healthy and nourishing, and and there's a lot of skill involved in that, then the outcome is going to be very different to one where it's the opposite.
Yeah.
So here we are. Here you are. You ended up in treatment. So I think you've gone into enough of the,
Yeah, backstory.
all the mad stuff. Yeah, I mean, you just scratched the surface on it, really. But there's enough there to really get a strong sense of where you was at with it all. How did you? Because did you go straight into treatment, into, like you say, a rehab? Did you go straight into it, or was there like a journey to get to that point? If we use the word recovery, if we say, you're in the journey of recovery now, of self-discovery of who Jayden really is, away from all of that chaos, did that journey start from the moment how did you get to that point of starting recovery? Where did it start?
I mean, the first thing I remember is going to intake, and um, one of the things that immediately caught me off guard is they said, "Have you been in therapy before?" And I said, "Yes, I have been in therapy before. I've been in a lot of therapy." So, okay, how many of them did you lie to? And I was like, nobody had ever asked me about that. It confronted me about that. I didn't know anybody did that. And that was immediate thing where I was like, fuck, like this is
They're on to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're on to me. It's like they know.
And that immediately caught me off guard. And then we got in the car to drive because we went from the intake to the rehab, and it was the typical thing where like I didn't really hug my mom goodbye, and I was like, yeah, whatever. Like my dad wasn't there, and then we got in the car, they're like, yeah, you're gonna regret that soon that you didn't hug your mom goodbye. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, where am I going? Because I had no idea, you know. And they were talking about me. My favorite pirate movie, I think, was the conversation in the car. I'm like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? I was, because I guess they think it's funny. Maybe I took myself too seriously or whatever. But my first other inmate, maybe not inmate, patient in the rehab.
How you saw it in my
Yeah.
email.
Well, that's how well, at the time.
Yeah,
So the first person I met, she walked in, and I guess she walked out of group therapy. I didn't know that at the time, but in hindsight, I guess that's where she walked out of group therapy, and one of the employees was following her, and she said, "Get away from me." And he said, "Oh, what, you're gonna kill me?" And she said, "No, I'll kill myself." And I looked at her, and I was sitting there, I'm like, oh my God, like I'm in the crazy house, even though I
yeah,
acted way more erratically in the past. But
yeah,
I guess seeing someone else do it, what I would do normally, was like scarring to me. I was like, oh my God, like who the fuck, like all these people, because I have done no research into this place at all.
yeah. How
Um,
the fuck? It's sort of almost like, how the fuck did it get to this? Oh
yeah,
my God, reality hitting, right?
and then whatever, later on, the first person I said hi to was my current girlfriend. So that was cute, in hindsight. Um, but then pretty quickly they asked, "What are you in here for?" And I don't really know. And they were like, "Are you like an addict?" And I was like, well, and they were like, "Yeah, like you're an addict." And I was like, "I guess so, okay." And then from that point onward, I just identified as that. But it was sort of, I worked on it and tried my best, just because for someone like me that felt so alone for so long, it was nice to have an identifiable term to put
Yeah,
on myself, addict. I
yeah,
think it's probably similar to the way like some people say, I like being part of or I'm part of the LGBTQ community. It's
yeah,
nice to have a term for yourself if you feel like you don't fit in, because then you have other people with that same term, and you're like, I'm like these people. This is my group of people.
yeah,
And I'm a pretty undescript for I'm like a white straight guy. Like that's pretty much as basic, plain as you get. And it was nice for me to have like an identifiable term that I could have,
yeah,
because I felt so alone for so long. And
yeah,
I think that's mainly why I worked at it and tried to get better and stuff like that. And obviously it wasn't easy at the start because everything I did seemed to be responded to, and like you did this incorrectly or you didn't respond correctly to this, because a lot of it came from a lot of like, I think a lot of hatred and kind of blaming people, and
Mm.
they just wanted me to take accountability for my own actions, but I didn't understand how to do that because, I think how you said earlier, like it's always like, why don't you understand me? If you felt like me, you would do this too, and but that doesn't excuse the actions. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I just couldn't wrap my head around that for probably 3 weeks before I was kind of like, oh, I get it now. You
Yeah.
know?
I think thank you for sharing that, Jayden. I think one of the defining moments for me was when I sat with it only took one other person, but when I'm sitting within the group, if that's just one other person or a handful of people or 20 people, when you're in that sort of group um consciousness, mentality of support, physically, emotionally, I'm going to say spiritually, when you connect on that level to that energy, that force, that power that is greater than just your miserable, lonesome self, former self, that thought, oh, I've just got to do what I've got to do because this is my lot and there is no way out and I'm just on my own with this. And for me, I just, I'd lived with that for so long of like, I've just got to do it the way I'm doing it because there is no other way of doing it. This
Yeah.
is my way. But yeah, it was a defining moment, very profound moment when I realized that, oh, I don't have to do it like that on my own anymore. There is another
Mm.
way. And these people are part of that process of me getting out of my own bullshit.
Mm.
And for the first time, actually just beginning to trust, opening up and listening and learning. I had to learn a lot. I had to learn a lot. And
Mm.
that required me listening,
Yeah.
just listening and being open to that process. Um, I use the word trust. Did you struggle with that yourself? Trust.
I mean, it depends. I think in close relationships, always when it came to being open about my life, I guess I never really had that big of a problem with it because I wouldn't let the people who were close enough to kind of hurt me in that sense.
Hmm.
So I have issues with trust in like an intimate relationship with like a partner or with a family member or with a close friend, but not with like those people I had just met. So for me, I didn't have a problem trusting them because I didn't really care what they thought. And then as I started caring more what I thought, I had already had like the positive experience of not being ostracized, because there were people in there who had done either worse than I had, a couple, and then people who had done the exact same as I had as well.
Mm.
So that already made me feel a little bit better about the fact that like, okay, I'm not really gonna get judged here for what I did.
Hmm.
But that was definitely emotionally looking back a convoluted time about how I felt about it.
Hmm.
And I think I liked it more at the time than I do looking back on it. Um but it was definitely overall, like an immensely helpful experience, because it even opened my mind to thinking somewhat differently about how things could be going in my life and how things could change, specifically with reading a lot of like the 12-step literature. When I was in um, treatment, it made me more hopeful about the future because I was living in so much kind of pain and misery and like self-hatred. Like I just was so depressed and so hateful and resentful than just hearing these people who've done the same thing and they did it a different way
Hmm.
and grew out of it or came to be above it was so crazy to me. Like it was my dream to get into like a 12-step fellowship and do steps
Yeah.
and get better and stuff like that. And for me, that was just
Yeah.
like, okay, I found it now. Like I want to go there. I want to get out of treatment to go there. And I
It's great,
became,
man.
yeah, but I became quite kind of cocky at the end of rehab. Kind of really like, yeah, like I'm the shit now. Meanwhile, I have like 10 weeks clean, like, which is definitely still like relapse, fucked up territory. You know,
I I definitely I'm gonna definitely put my hand up and say, spiritual grandiosity
yeah,
is something I always had a massive ego. Although my self-esteem and my self-worth was on, zero, below zero,
yeah,
minus zero. I had an inflated sense of ego. But that was to protect me. And I still need that sometimes in life to have that ego step in. And, you know, I feel
mm,
like it's not about getting rid of it. That's just the way I see it. I don't think it's about getting rid of ego. I think it's just about the ego stepping aside and your authentic self being there. Excuse me. More than the ego is. But I think it's really hard when you go through a process, because I don't know about you, I'd like you to share your version of this, but for me, on one hand, it felt easy stepping into a process. You mentioned 12 steps in a program of treatment, of recovery from, getting off of drugs, etc., and rebuilding your life. I think when you start to enter a program, whatever program that is, whether it's just learning to bloody meditate or do yoga or something, or just getting fit, or when you start to change your attitude and your lifestyle so it starts to serve you, yeah,
yeah,
I think it is met with some resistance. It's quite
mm,
for me, on one hand, I really needed it and I was ready, and I was so fucking burnt out from my old former way of doing things that when I started to step into a solution, um, I was ready, put it that way. But there was still a lot of resistance, because I'd lived my life, it was really hardwired, that old way of doing things. So I had to I think that's the thing that prevents a lot of people from getting this, is because that kind of hardwired sense of defiance to just let go of the control and allow ourselves to get well is there. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
yeah. I mean, somebody once described like getting clean or sober as breaking up with sort of like your girlfriend, and it's that same way, you have this girlfriend and you don't want to break up with her, but you have to break up with her because it's unhealthy, but you still, want to have a booty call or something like that once in a while and, call her again and everything, but you can't call her back because, it's going to be unhealthy.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, that's a lot what it was like getting over drugs. It was like that for me, and I hated it so much, but I loved the chaos and the destruction of it all, because my whole life I was raised this one way and I didn't like that way. I didn't like the way I was raised. I didn't like the way I was, and I want to completely tear that all to the ground. And it's the thing that's difficult is when you're getting clean, at least for me, I was told to do things that I didn't like doing, that were difficult for me and hurt me because they're better for me than doing what I was doing, which was also hurting me and difficult to do, but I liked it. But growth always requires some sort of pain, I guess. Maybe not all growth, but maybe at that stage in my life it did. And I guess I had tried one way so long that wasn't working at that point. I was sort of ready to try the other way, even though it was still kind of painful for me. I needed to
Yeah,
do that,
yeah,
to come out better on the other side in a certain way. Not like I've come out anywhere or arrived anywhere or at any grand conclusion about my life or spirituality or, whatever. Yeah.
yeah. I love that, man. Well done for saying that. Yeah, it's really hard. I think it is so hard to do what you've done, and I know what I've done and what a lot of other people do. It's really hard. That's why it's not for everyone. They can't, and I'm gonna say it, I'll just be fucking honest. They can't stomach it. You know,
Yeah.
it's hard. It's really hard. Otherwise, everyone would be doing it. Culturally, as well. You're from Germany originally.
Yeah.
Um, Similar to where I'm from in England. Culturally, we go hard, right? Go hard or go
Yeah.
home. That's the message we're taught, right? That's what we receive, that information is
Yeah.
we party hard, right? We go for it.
And I mean, coming out of treatment, you were like, I guess my go-to guy with if something was going wrong. It was like, yeah, you have to call Dave and talk about it with Dave. And I think when I got out of treatment, the first thing was kind of like that right away came up was Christmas and New Year's, which for at least my family is the kind of biggest drinking time of the year.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
we drink the most. And I think I remember you were telling me, a lot about what to do in these situations and how to handle it. But I was quite kind of upset that nobody kind of took regard for me in the sense that they wouldn't drink or wouldn't drink as much. In fact, I was and still am kind of encouraged to drink. People just this Christmas, somebody asked me, why are you so boring? Why don't you drink? And I was like, well, I mean, I could, but it would probably be a mess. Like I would vomit all over the hotel room, and then the bed would be flipped upside down, and I wouldn't, and um, it just it's seen as boring or not as a normal thing, I guess, at least in my
Yeah.
culture, or but it's complicated.
That's such a, I'm gonna be honest, I don't give a fuck. Such a unintelligent response to that decision not to drink. There's a total lack of intelligence to that response of, it's boring. Why are you so boring? It's like, like, why do people straight away associate not drinking to being fucking boring? It's just a bit peculiar to me, that concept that people think that. Because from where I'm sitting, myself included, when we get drunk and we get a bit twatted, turn into fucking idiots. And if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. I mean, look, it's without getting into it, pull that apart all day long, but that's a really hard thing to come up against when you're
Yeah.
in when you've had when it's been affected to you, because that person that says, why are you so boring, I'd like I'd like to see them try and do what you've done. The great strength, the mighty person is the person that I'm looking at right now, Jayden. You, right? You are the badass motherfucker, not the guy who isn't able to do what you've done. Because I'm
Yeah.
not sure they could do it. They couldn't stomach it. Just my opinion. I'm entitled to that.
I mean, it's difficult to come up in general, even if you're the one who's it being told to. You can't. A lot of, for me, I think so many of us are so sort of prone to trying to please people. I know I am, right?
Yes.
And then being told that, it's like, fuck, like, I again feel like I'm not good enough, like, I mean, I felt like that in childhood, right? So then again, we're bringing it up, like, oh, now you're not drinking, but you're still not good enough, or you're not doing drugs, but it's still a problem.
Yeah.
And I guess it's sort of you have to just learn how to navigate that. I mean, the old way as you're getting, clean or sober or whatever.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And it's the first Christmas and first New Year, like you said.
Yeah.
Can't remember what we discussed about, but it would have been definitely, how do we navigate this space, because everyone seems to be going mental, and I'm the only one that's not able to do that because I'm
Yeah.
abstaining from doing it, and it's really hard to do it. But you get through, you do it, you feel good. We empower ourselves, we become strong in nature and character. Like I say, not everyone can stomach this stuff. Then they haven't got the strength to do it. Which is why it's frowned upon. Why are you so boring?
Yeah.
But you've just got to stay true to the dedication to the cause. Why are you doing it? You know why you're staying abstaining. Do you feel like your life depends on it? Do you feel like if you was to relapse, it would it would be an
And
absolute nightmare.
people in meetings usually would say, like, if I relapse, I'm gonna die. That's it.
Mm.
And I have two ways of thinking about it. So either if I were to relapse, I don't think I'd die right away, but I would die eventually from drug use or from killing myself. But I don't think it would be right away. But that time could be within a month or within 20 years. I don't know when that time's gonna come where I would pull the trigger or do too much, or some situation would come up. But if I were to relapse and continue using, I would definitely die from it. Then I also think, even if I could use normally, is going out every Saturday evening really worth giving up all the friends, all the companionship, all the potential for growth, everything? Even if I could drink normally, it wouldn't be worth it to me. So there's no point in even going down that route of thinking about it. But I know the way that I was using before I got clean would have resulted in my death probably by this time. Not even just because of drugs, but also just because of, like suicidal ideation and just the environment I was in. You can always steal something and get shot as well. Like, that's also an option, at least in America. Maybe not in the UK, granted, but that's happened to people where I come from. And I think that it's also an option. So if I would have kept using, it definitely would have led to death, I think.
Totally.
Yeah.
A big part of not being under the influence is being present in your life, being really present and paying attention. Because when I'm under the influence of whatever, it's impaired. I'm not fully present, and that's when things. Some people, that's not a problem. It's not about.
Yeah.
We're talking about, this is one extreme version of where it goes wrong, and we have to change direction and do things a different way. And it's not for everyone. Not everyone needs to do this. Some people can just go out and get a little bit wonky overnight, and no consequences. Hey, no, crack on, business as usual. And it's just I think distinguishing between, which one are you? Are you the sort of person that has no consequences to your actions, or
Yeah.
or is it a complete fucking shit show, but you're in denial about it, and you're too scared to do anything about it? So it's great. I'm always inspired by, like I said earlier, you're 20 years old. You was actually how old when you actually entered?
17, I think. 17.
Yeah, it's really inspiring to anyone that may find this, whether you're a parent and you've got a son or daughter who's, experiencing some of the stuff we've been talking about. This raises a lot of hope for people that it is possible. It is possible. Do you feel, Jayden, you are one of the people that ended up in a treatment center because you had the means to do that? You were you living in America at a time when you went to Europe to do the treatment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I was going to boarding school in Europe, but I lived in America, so I was
Okay.
physically in Europe
Okay.
when I was sent to treatment.
Okay. So you had the means to be able to get to treatment. Not everyone has that. So I just would love to see your thoughts on, if anyone hears this but they haven't got the means to get to a treatment center, what could you possibly share with someone who might be listening to this, whether it's a parent who's listening, who's has their own sort of son or daughter that's in this place, or if someone is directly involved and they just haven't got the means to get a treatment center. Have you got any thoughts on things that you have learned along the way that could possibly, I don't know, help them start some sort of process? I don't know what you think on that.
Well, I mean, the big thing is, I know plenty of people that got clean and sober just through 12 steps, which is like so accessible now because you can just go on Zoom and go to one. And I mean, that's really the bare minimum I could do, is I'll go to a Zoom meeting. That's the bare minimum. But I mean, I think almost every country has a meeting, a 12-step meeting, or anything in that sort of, I guess, range of stuff. But I mean, at least in America, you can go to plenty of rehabs, kind of sponsored by the state or by the city or by whatever,
Yeah.
and that's obviously an option. And then, but I think you can definitely find, I mean, free help, just 12 steps. I mean, at least in my experience, I've been pretty lucky to find people that will basically give me infinite support for no price at all,
Yeah.
except a thank you, not even, because those people have been in the same position and they know exactly. I mean, I do the same thing, or I have done the same thing, where I mean, I'm essentially helping save a life, and and that's basically worth anything. I mean, I've slept on people's couches, to avoid using. I think one time I broke up with my girlfriend, and I was really upset, and I called my sponsee brother at the time, and I was like, "Hey, man, like, can I sleep on your couch? Because I don't want to use, you know, I want someone to be there, so like I can be held accountable, whatever you want to say." And that is already so much free support, you know.
It's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, it is really, I don't, because I never imagined doing that or anybody doing that for me. And that's really the true gift of that, is because when I was using, nobody ever wanted me around. Nobody liked me because I was a huge asshole. I didn't even like myself, man. And now people like seeing me, and people like seeing
Yeah.
newcomers as well. And I like seeing newcomers as well. So you have people that have, fresh off the street or whatever, who've absolutely ruined their lives, and everybody say, "Oh my God, I'm so happy you're here." Because this is where your life might be saved.
Yeah.
That's like
Yeah. It's a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing. I owe my life a huge part of what I do to there's one guy in particular, and I will name him Tony, who without him, I might not be here talking to you right now. It all started with a guy who saw something in me that he knew where I was at, and he knew that I was in a bad place, and he knew that I couldn't really articulate it. He knew that was a big part of it. I didn't have a voice, didn't know how to articulate and ask for help. That's a big part of it. Is
yeah,
we need to just initially I need help. That's what we need to get to, a point where it's like, I need help, and once we vocalize that to one person, then we can start the process of getting that help, whatever that may be. And that guy, Tony, was the catalyst. He was the one that sat and created a space and held a space for me where I felt I could do that. And I had a lot of mates, a lot of people, people that loved me, family, whatever around me, that I never really knew how to articulate that. But it's because what made it different, what was the difference in him and all these other people, is that he had already gone through a process that I was about to enter. That process of recovering and facing his demons and overcoming adversity. And he was in that process. He'd been in it for quite a long time, and he just held the space, and I felt safe, and I felt like he understood. He really truly got it. And I think that's the only way for me that I was ever going to ask for help, was when I could be in that space, and that's a blessing. So thank you, Tony. And that started the journey of, there's a lot of Tonys out there, and like you say, support groups, 12-step recovery, whether it's whatever support groups, there's rooms, not just physical meetings all over the world, but online, that you can seek. Just, you go online, you just punch in, support groups for whatever you're struggling with, you'll find them.
yeah.
The hard thing though is and I want you to share this, Jayden, because for me, I needed someone to literally hold my hand. You know, because if it was left to me on my own, I'm not sure I would have walked in on my own and done it on my own. I needed someone to sort of just say, "Yo, Dave, like there's this door here. I'm going to open it for you, and
Yeah.
I'll walk through with you, and we'll go through that door together. And on the other side of that door is like your new life, and I'm here for you." You know, I needed that. I'm not sure if someone just said, "Dave, see that door there? Go and walk through it. There's your new life. You know, see you later, and good
Yeah.
luck." I'm not sure I would have walked through that door. I'm not sure because I was fucking overwhelmed with fear of the unknown. You know, I was really, really scared of stepping into that unknown. That's the trouble, I think,
Yeah.
for a lot of people is it's just that the unknown is such a scary thing. So what was your experience of that? Because you said you'd done some therapy, a load of therapy,
Yeah.
and then you went to treatment. Where's the bridge between, you know, did someone, oh, like, you know, what I just described, did someone hold your
Mm.
hand and take you, or they say you've got to, or how, you know, how did that all play out?
Well, I mean, when I got out of treatment, I was in treatment. We looked up like meetings in our area, and the first thing I did was look up meetings in Miami because that's where I live. Um, but when I went to meetings in Miami, I didn't, and I've heard this from a lot of people. At least, NA in Miami isn't very welcoming. I found if I'm in Miami now from a university, I go to AA meetings. So I like AA in Miami a lot more, but NA isn't particularly. Um, I don't know. I didn't like it a lot when I went there. You know, not like you can't get the same thing from AA or from whatever other fellowship you want. It's all the same thing, anyways. So I didn't go to a lot of meetings at the time when I just got out. And I think it was Toby actually who you talked to last time. He was like, "Hey, I'm running this online meeting with young people and yada yada yada. Maybe you should come." And I went to that meeting, and then it was online. And then I went to that meeting for about another year, um, while I was finishing my high school, and I did service work there. I met all the people there. I still go there actually. If I'm not at home, I'll go to that online meeting. Um, just because I know all the people there, and it's great to have seen it grow and stuff like that. But it was a really nice thing to be like, because I met Toby in treatment. He did like his life story and whatever shit his experience, and he gave me his number, and I texted him like, "Hey, like I want to go to meetings or something like that," and
Yeah,
it was really nice to have to know like, oh, I'm gonna see this familiar face there, because it was for me, it was sort of like a big step, you know, for people who are so prideful,
yeah,
like me
yeah,
and
yeah.
some people, we really are actually quite, you know, insecure,
Hmm.
and we have problems actually showing that.
Yeah, yeah,
And it was really difficult for me to go to meetings and make connections, you know. But then, you know, I started doing Toby's online meeting a little bit, and then was like, okay, now I don't need to see Toby at the meeting to go. And then I started that helped me kind of, you know, become more comfortable with the fact that I can and walk into a meeting and be welcome. And I mean, now I go into any meeting and I'll just be like, "Hey, man, like we're friends now. Talk to me." Or you know, sometimes I'll even say like, "Hey, I'm scared to talk to you." He's like I'm shy, but can you talk to me, please? Because I want to talk to someone, or whatever. So it's, you know, at least now I'm open and honest about it. You know,
yeah,
um, but that helped a lot. You know, having someone say, you know, come with me to that meeting. And I mean, I know a lot of the time, people from, if you call like the helpline of any of these trusted fellowships, a lot of the time, in my experience, if you call them, they'll be like, yeah, like I'll pick you up at the airport and we'll go to a meeting, or I'll pick you up at your
yeah.
hotel, or I'll come to your house and we'll go together, or I'll be there, you can come see me, or whatever. And that, I think that probably helps a lot for a lot of people.
It's amazing. I was in on the other side of the world visiting my brother, and I was very early in my journey, very early. And I felt like I was the only person on that dot of land that I was in Australasia. I felt like I was the only one that wasn't drinking. You know, everyone seemed to be at it. and I was really struggling, so I just got my ass to a meeting, and I ended up on a freaking boat. The guy, kindly gave me a lift home. That's what these people are like, right? Everyone's very, very, everyone just seems very happy because
Yeah.
they've got like this there's something fucking beautiful about people who have overcome adversity and they've got this second chance at life. They're just very grateful with just the simple things in life, and they just want to help
Yeah.
you without anything in return. And so I ended up on a boat. And he said, keep it secret because I don't want everyone knowing about my boat. But that's just an example of the kind of like the kindness and the generosity and the love of people, because they just want to help you because they just want to fucking help you. You know what I mean? It's a very beautiful, powerful antidote for life. I think we need that
Yeah.
a lot more, and I think that's the flip side to being in the hell of and the horror of mental illness is if you can find these support groups, whatever they may be, they don't have to be 12-step, whatever, just find support groups. If you can find those communities, there's people waiting for you who will just lift you up. And what's the saying? They love you until you learn to fucking love yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Very straight line. And that was my experience of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, blooming hell. So your life now, Jayden, because you was going around punching people in your
Not at my school.
not school, not fellow students. You was taking out the top people like
Yeah.
the teachers. So I'm gonna assume that you when you came out. It's a while ago, so I can't really remember too much. You went back into. Did you go in straight away back into an education
Yeah.
thing?
Well, so I got out like a month and a half before my winter break would have started. So after I got out, I basically stayed out of school for that month and a half until after winter break, and then that January I started my schooling again.
Okay, and that second coming of doing that was probably, I don't know, I'm presuming
Mm.
anxiety inducing because you're going in without all of the old
Yeah.
means to cope, like drugs and
To be fair, I kind of came in with a whole new list of excuses because then it's like, oh, I have to go to a meeting or I have to call my sponsor or well, I can't do that. I'm in recovery or something like that. So I came in with this whole new, and which was, I mean, kind of scammy and kind of fucked up, but also kind of useful because there was a lot of situations I wasn't really comfortable with that I could get out of because, you have to come watch the school play and I'm like, oh, I have a meeting to go to. So
yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
gonna do that. And um that was sort of helpful, but I think the thing that scared me the most is people gossip in high school. I mean, like crazy. So it was like everybody immediately was aware, like, oh, he went to rehab and now he's back. And that was just awkward. And it was also weird coming for me in that time. I mean, I hadn't changed like a ton, but I mean, I changed quite a bit. It's a big contrast from that until those couple months after. But you think you're this, or I thought I was this new person, but to other people, they didn't see that. To them, it's just the same asshole. So then I talk to people like normally, and they'd be like, they want me to fuck off. They'd be like, why? Like, what did I do? And I'm like, oh, well, why would they want to talk to me? With
mm,
what they know about me. People say like your first impression counts, and I already ruined my first impression. So I mean, my high school career at that point just became about getting my degree and leaving. There was no real interest in social networking or
yeah.
any of that, and that was fine. Honestly, just focusing on recovery, and I mean, my grades went up a lot after I got clean, not very surprisingly. So it was also easy to kind of get by with a CB average, just kind of normal middle of the road grades. And
Yeah.
it was scary, it was kind of a whole new set of challenges, kind of similar. Oh, why don't you don't drink? And
Yeah.
even telling people is kind of complicated. Also, your old friends, well, my co had like maybe like 3 friends and no 4, and they were just like, "What's going on?" And then I was like, "Oh, we don't actually like each other anymore." Like, it's all that stuff. It's just difficult to,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
It's hard, isn't it, when you've got like one thing that's in common with people is socializing.
yeah,
We call it socializing, but I'm not sure your the way you use drugs and drunk and whatever was social. I'm
yeah,
not sure about that, but maybe it started out as that. But it ends up with us just in a room on our own, right?
yeah. I mean, my best friend at the time, or who I thought was my best friend, he didn't. When I got out of treatment, he didn't even ask me how it was.
Oh wow.
He was like, "When will you be back to get high?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't do that anymore." And he was like, "Oh, okay." And then we talked maybe like 2 times since then.
Oh, well, that made it easy for you.
Yeah, I mean,
That was easy to establish that that wasn't going to serve your
no, exactly.
future. So you got the job done and you walked away, and like you say, you was able to turn up for yourself, turn up for what you needed to do. You had focus, dedication to the cause. You got the job done. You left there. What is life like for you now? What are you doing, Jayden?
I mean, um, I mean, obviously a drastic improvement in at least standards wise. I mean, I shower, that's nice. Um, I have, I don't know. I always say the main thing that I've gotten out of this whole experience is the ability to recognize that I'm flawed and can grow. Because that's the most, because you can say so many things. Oh, I'm not like this. I'm not like that. I do this now. But really, that's the main thing that a company that has everything, within it. Because I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I have a lot of, um, mental issues, physical issues. I'm emotionally like still can be unstable and irritable and everything. I still argue with people. All that stuff. I still get shy, insecure, jealous, whatever you want to call it. But at least I have the ability to grow and to also ask for help. That's the biggest thing is that I could never do is ask for help. Not even about something that wasn't emotional, pass me this or can you go get this for me at the shop or anything, but now I have no fear of asking for anything that I need help with.
Yeah,
Can you help me finish this? I need help with this university assignment or whatever, it's something I could never do. So
yeah,
just I can ask for help and I know that there's growth, when you ask for help or ask somebody, so all the time, if I have an argument with my girlfriend or whatever, I'll call one of my trusted friends and I'll be like, you just tell me if this is like reasonable. Like what I'm feeling right now, like if this is a reasonable response to this. And most of the time they'll be like, no, it's not reasonable. Like you're crazy. And then I'll be like, okay, honey, I fucked up. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I was told this was not reasonable. I thought it was. I thought this was okay to get upset about this or whatever. But
yeah.
that's the biggest thing. It's just,
Yeah.
and also the fact that I don't have to uh, get high to get away from that sort of self-hatred that I sometimes still feel. It's like, okay, now I can change something about myself to make that better.
Yeah. I really thank you for sharing that. I really relate to what you're saying. And in reflection, 2 years, you're in 2 years into your journey. Excuse me. And I look back because that's like many, many years ago. I was in that sort of place, and we're all different. It's not no right
Yeah.
or wrong. It's we're all on a different journey, and the time frame is not really can't be too focused on where we're at in the time frame of it all. But I would say that looking back in reflection, what you just described that was part of my journey as well, was just
Yeah.
I needed to always bounce, ask people, what do you think of this? Because I'm not sure, because
Yeah.
that delusional sort of sense of perception of reality is impaired. For whatever reason, is it just the way I'm wired, or is it because I took a lot of drugs? And, or whatever, but it is what it is. And I think part of the process of recovery, um, and I like to use the term self-discovery within recovery. I think that's really important. What you described, having the capacity to know that we are perfectly imperfect, as they say.
Yeah.
We're not striving for perfection. That is the enemy of good, as they say. I'm coming out of all the cliches now. But like, it's about just realizing that I'm okay. I am okay. I'm not perfect. I fuck up sometimes. But it's taking accountability for that. And sometimes I need to share that with other people and discuss, and whether that's with like a friend, or you've got a counselor or a therapist, or a beloved, someone that's very close to you, who just can hold that space and listen, and you share that with them, and sort of say, ask them, what do you think? Is that, like, am I going off on, am I off piste with that?
Mm.
Um, but for me, my experience is the more that I learn to do that, the more that I get a stronger sense, a closer sense of actually not feeling like I have to do it all the time, that I can actually get to a point where I just know intuitively. It's building that sense of intuition,
Yeah.
of my authentic self, so that I don't have to second guess myself all the time. And that takes a lot of practice and experience, and over the years, you are exactly where you're meant to be, as they say. And over
Yeah.
time, I think you already are, Jayden. You're an inspiration, and you're going to become a really incredible, you already are an incredible human being. Um, so yeah, it's freaking great to have you on, man. I'm going to just ask you one last thing, and I think we'll close it off. For anyone that might find this conversation, I think you might have just done it. Really, the two things you said are like the things that you've realized that are really fundamental in you going forward in your life. But is there anything else that you feel you could offer anyone who might find this, who might just be struggling in some way and relate to what we've talked about? Is there anything that you can think of that you could pass on?
I think the biggest thing ought to be I think people who are in my position or were in my position were so filled with pride and sort of self-loathing that we don't realize how hypocritical we are. For people who think so highly of themselves, we really put ourselves through hell. And sometimes I think it would be a good idea to kind of act on that pride and try to get that help. And I always think about the way you act, and I always hated hypocrites. Think about how hypocritical I am in saying, "Oh, I'm all this and that, but I'm living in a fucking tent, and can't eat or drink anything because I haven't eaten for a week." Um, and make that first step and, ask for the help. But that's obviously easier said than done. And it was definitely a difficult journey for me, and I was kind of forced into it. I don't know how things would have gone if I would have been on my own at that point. But there's definitely, a light at the end of the tunnel, and I do some stuff with my school to kind of help people who are like in my position, who might want to get clean and stuff like that. And I talk to a lot of these people and I say, you, a lot of people think they're too young, or I'm too young, or I have a this, or I have a that, or an X and a Y and a Z, and that's why I can't get clean now, or I can't do this now. But it's really like the sooner you do it, the sooner you'll be reaping the benefits, and the less damage you will do, and the less difficult it is. So for me, it's like, stop now before it's too late. Because I used to think I was so much better than so many people, but everything that I've ever heard in the meeting, I could see myself doing the exact same thing at some point if the conditions were met, you know? So I have no place to judge or to think it couldn't get that bad, because it can always get that worse. You know, that place where I thought it would never go, it went there and it went beyond that, and it can keep going. So that for me is sort of the thing that's like, stop now. You know, if I would have realized I had a problem, if I would have been cognizant enough of that, I would hope that I would have been able to find some resources. And I didn't even know that all that stuff existed, like AA, NA, whatever, CA, who cares, you know, all those A's. And if somebody were to stumble upon this and didn't realize that existed, but they had that problem, I would hope for that person that they would take the necessary steps to, you know, get into that environment where they can help themselves, which, I mean, honestly, it's just calling like a helpline, picking up the phone or Google search, you know, that can change life for the better forever, and for those people around you as well, you know. It's just a massively beneficial thing.
That's really beautiful, man. Very, very great advice there. Very good advice. Thank you, Jayden. I think it's about, for me, being a secret squirrel. You know that I do believe. I think I may be wrong, but I think most people that are struggling with mental illness, we keep it. It's a very internal. You know, we keep it. We're, what's the saying? We're as sick as our secrets, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And I think obviously that's the problem, is it's secret. We keep it, you know, we keep our mouths shut and we keep our heads down. It's our problem. We don't want to burden it on anyone. And it's how do we sort of come out of that sort of shell and find help. And I think if you use that same attitude, because it is a skill, a requirement to stay stuck in that. You know, you can stay stuck in that all your life with that attitude. But if we can just refocus that sort of secret squirrel attitude into seeking out the solution, what I'm saying is you don't have to tell anyone. I mean, it is a parody, because it's like a paradox, because it's like you do need to tell someone. But if you do it in a secret squirrel kind of way, like for me, I didn't tell anyone I was going to go and do a support group, you know, because I didn't want to be judged. So I just secretly went and did it. You know what I mean? So with Tony, you know, he held my hand and we secretly went and did it. I didn't tell anyone. So my point is that what you're saying, you know, I think if you can just, if you are listening to this and you struggle with telling people and asking for help, and you're a secret squirrel in isolation, just use that same mindset to just go and secretly find a support group and dare to get in it or get on it online. It's hard though, man. It's fucking hard, isn't it?
I mean, I think, don't they say like 1 in 10 people is an addict or something like that? Or, you know, there's a lot of people out there who are either having the same issue or have kind of, I guess, let's say, overcome that issue by, you know, being in a program or whatever, or not being sober, clean, whatever. And I think I was surprised, like when I got involved with my school to do that, there was a couple like members of staff and stuff like that, and I was like, I wouldn't have really thought that, or students maybe, you know. So there's actually, I think, a lot more people around you that are probably even involved in this than a lot of people realize.
Yeah.
But that's been my experience. People who are rather close to me are involved in this, and I never thought about it, or I never realized it, you know. But of course, it's, you know, if you're with your family, they ask you to drink and you say no, and they start questioning you, then, you know, it's a different story. But just people at work or at school or whatever it is, you know.
Exactly. Exactly. It's not until you start talking about it that you start really realizing, oh, I'm not the only one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is the whole point of these conversations, and this is why it's been great to have you on, Jayden.
Thanks.
You know, you've got a really strong message there. And I hope that some, just, you know, even if it's one person just finds this and can get something from it and feel inspired enough to take some action and reach out and get help, you know, start the journey. So thank you so much, Jayden, for joining me. It's been
Thanks for having me.
a pleasure to see you as well. You look really well, man.
Thanks. I'm sick, but besides that,
I'm not going to ask you what sort of sick you are. I mean,
don't ask.
no, you look great, man. You look great. And it's been
Thanks.
a pleasure spending time with you. So on that note, I'm going to say see you soon. See you later, mate.
Yeah, see you.
Take care.
Thanks.